Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Gaming Night. Sorry for a lot of videos today, just had a lot going on. Now, this subject matter is a matter that I'm on the fence with. I'm going to cover two different spectrums of it. The topic is house rules, as you said, so you guys can feel free to do a video response or a comment below on what you think of this. We're going to talk about the different kinds of house ruling. House ruling where it affects the game, and then there's house ruling for if, let's say, something happens that you don't predict would happen in a game, and you just say, well, if this happens next time, we do this instead because it's not covered in the rules or in the FAQ. Which you could determine that if it's not covered in the rule book, then the game rule book wasn't thoroughly explored, and they didn't think of that at the time, or it was a poorly written rule book, and it's somewhere in there. Now, most games nowadays, you can go online and go on BoardGameGeek.com or some site and find ways to fix things that are broken in the game, or a question that comes up that you didn't think would come up, but it come up. So I'm all for house ruling stuff like, well, if you drop a dice on the ground, it doesn't count, pick it up and re-roll it, or like you're allowed to take back a move as long as another player doesn't take their turn. So, like, let's say you go, I'm going to play this card, and then you change then you take it back and play. It's fine for like when you're got new players playing. You don't want to make it to where they're not uncomfortable, or it's like more of a learning experience. So anything that affects the game like that is fine, like, you know, doesn't really affect the game. But the other side of the spectrum, like adding rules to games that aren't really there just to change it up, and then the problem with that I see is it's gonna cause a person that might be learning the game for the first time, plays it at a friend's house, and they play a rule that isn't in the rule book, it's just something they added in. Well, when that player goes to someone else's house, they're going to have arguments over the rules, and it's going to cause problems. So that's why I don't really partake in the house rules where it changes a rule in the game just to, add something that's not really there, that shouldn't be in there. It breaks the game to where it's not fun anymore, or makes the game longer than it should be. Monopoly is a good example of that, where you put the money in the middle. People put money in the middle of the board, and they land on free park, and they get to take all that money. Well, the point of any money that's lost is supposed to be permanently lost, because the game ends when all the players are bankrupt and they have to start selling property. And when there's only one person with money, that's the point. But if you're putting money in the middle of the board and you land on free park, and someone's going to get the money back, so that it's going to prolong it. It's chaos. It's not good. Let's see, another game people might house rule. Trying to think of other ones I've seen happen. Someone might house rule where you roll it says you roll one dice, and then that's the result. Someone would say, well, let's roll two dice, and then that way you choose which dice to roll. That's causes other issues and things like that. It's more or less a balance issue. Or house ruling, you'll start with more cards than you normally would. Things like that are destined to fail. So I have a tendency to not house rule things like that. If it's in the rule book, that's the way we play it. Now, there is, like, if you misinterpret the rule, that's another thing. But that's why when usually you play a game for the first time, you say, this is a learning game. We're all learning as we go, and any mistakes that we find, we'll address them next time we play, saying, hey, this is what I found out, and say, well, that's not what happened. They said, well, that's what I found out by going online and stuff like that and finding it out. Because you're not always going to read the rules, especially if you're the only one reading the rules and the other players are just following what you do. You're bound to make mistakes. So, with the new game, So yeah, that's my opinion on it. Like anything that changing the rules, like that bend it to where it's not it prolongs it or makes it or breaks the game altogether, can be a big problem. But yeah, there's really not a whole lot of like house ruling examples I could really give that I had experiences with, because most of us, we play by the rules and stuff like that, and we don't really house rule stuff. So but that's stuff I've seen, like Monopoly is one of them. Games where you roll extra dice when you're not supposed to. Games you're giving players extra cards. Stuff like that. It just gets out of hand, and I know I really but yeah, like I said, I've seen some house rules that are cool, though, for games that I call them more a variance, and those are fine if you guys all set to the rules and agree that this is just a house rule. This is not something that you particularly do in a game. It's fine as long as you address it. But like games with Monopoly, it just prolongs the game, makes it like more annoying for everybody else involved. Now there's the exception where people will probably purposely throw dice on the floor just so they can re-roll the dice, because they like, oh crap, I rolled a 1, or crap, re-roll it, or roll the dice and it hits something on the table and says, well, I rolled a 1, and then, well, that's when you got a house rule and say, okay, anytime the dice hits something other than the table, like another person's hand or a cup, you re-roll it or something. So that, or if a die is cocked, it's always re-rolled regardless of what the roll is on top, because then if you start saying, well, it's a good number, we'll take it. Even in cooperative games where you're working together to beat the game, you're only cheating yourself when the solo play, and then it just becomes a point where when you guys aren't really setting on the rules ahead of time prior to playing, then you're just gonna confuse everybody. There's gonna be exceptions made, and not everyone's gonna follow the same exceptions. So you kind of gotta get with your group to play games and stuff like that. So sorry I'm rambling on a little bit. I'm kind of, this is off the cuff. So now I remember playing a game at a hobby shop before a game with my group that I have now. I was learning a miniatures game. I can't remember which one it was. It was not 40. It was, oh yeah, BattleTech. And I was playing with someone for the first time, and they house ruled a lot of stuff, like where like how they handled hits, how many hit points you had, and how much starting money you had, all that stuff for your battle mech. I mean, and how many mechs you were supposed to have on the board and all that, things like that. And they said, oh, so that's how you regularly play and all that stuff. This is tournament. We're playing tournament rules. Well, I went to another friend's house that did BattleTech, and they played the tournament rules. So when I got like all my stuff all set up, I'm like, they're like, oh, those are house rules. I'm like, oh crap. So I had to relearn the game all over again. So that's kind of my example of frustration here, because what I thought how I was playing correctly was interpreted differently. Like turn order was all done differently, and all that stuff, and it just confused the heck out of me. So I mean, complicated games like tabletop miniature games, house ruling it really causes more confusion, because there's already complicated rules to begin with, and you're already trying to learn a game, and then you got to relearn it. It's just a whole another set of frustration. I mean, in video games, that doesn't happen. I mean, if you play a video game, the game itself has its own set of rules. So if you are playing it, it's not going to let you break it unless there's a glitch in the game or something. But typically, it has a set of rules that you have to always follow. So that's how I am like with board games per se. It goes by the rules, and if we misinterpret a rule, we'll refix it. So, anyway, sorry for rambling on a lot, but I just thought I'd give my 2 cents worth, and I usually plan stuff, but this was just off the cuff, and I just wanted to talk about it and see what you guys think about house ruling and your opinions on it. So comment below or do a sponsor battle for GamingNight's house ruling. And we'll hopefully get a response from you guys. Thanks for watching.